The 2025 NFL Draft was filled with some really solid offensive players. So in today's video, I want to talk about the 5 contenders for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. Subscribe if you're new, let's hop into it. So before we get into my top 5, I do have 3 honorable mentions that I did want to mention for this video. Those being Emeka Egbuka, Amarian Hampton, and RJ Harvey. All of these guys fit my criteria of getting opportunities while also being their potential starters and having a nice situation. So those guys were considered, but ultimately they just missed out. But we are going to begin with, at number 5, I have Quinshon Judkins. Now, yes, he was a second-round pick, so we do have to kind of keep that in mind. However, Quinshon Judkins fits my criteria of having plenty of opportunities in his rookie season. He's going to be the full-time starter, although guys like Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford will obviously take some carries away from him, but he will be the go-to guy. And 3, the situation around him is perfect for a young rookie running back to step in there and instantly be a contributor. For starters, this is a team that wants to run the football. They want to rely on their veteran offensive line, and now that they have some explosive running backs in the running back room, they're probably going to run the ball a lot more so than what they did last year. If this team can stay on schedule, if they can stay within a rhythm, this is going to be probably a run-first team with Quinshon Judkins taking a lot of the work. My only concern for Quinshon is I do think Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson can take away some of his receiving work, which that will probably hurt his case for Offensive Rookie of the Year. However, if he does run the ball effectively and if he gets just a handful of catches and a handful of yards passing wise, I do think he will have a good argument. I know the offensive line for Cleveland last year was not very good, but historically speaking, these past couple years, it has been good when it has been healthy. So we'll have to wait and see what it looks like this upcoming season. Maybe because the receivers were or because the offense was just so bad last year, the offensive line kind of took the season off. I don't know. Hopefully they'll be better this upcoming season with some new running backs as well as some new quarterbacks. And when you talk about the situation, again, as I mentioned, this is going to be a run-first team, but this team should have at least a bit more of a respectable passing game. Last year, there was no respectable passing game with Jameis, nor, of course, Deshaun Watson. But at least this year, you have to respect a guy like Joe Flacco. I think you have to respect Kenny Pickett enough. And, of course, your young rookie quarterbacks in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders do present some interesting passing options as well. So if this passing game can be effective in RPOs, can be effective in play action, and can just be okay next year, not great, but just okay, then I think this will open up the ground game a ton for a guy like Quinshon. I think he's going to get a ton of work. I would not be surprised if he got close to 300 carries next year. I think he'll be eclipsing probably over 1,000 yards in his rookie season and be the clear go-to guy and the clear superstar that this offense needs. Now, again, I want to reiterate that I do think that he is the weakest candidate within this list, hence why he's at my number 5, just because there is some other running backs in this running back room, and Ford and Sampson, who I think will take away some of his work, as well as the fact this is just a Browns team that is not very talented on the offensive end, which could end up hurting Quinshon because teams could just end up stacking the box and really making it difficult for Quinshon to make big plays. But I'm banking on the fact that this team is a little bit improved from last year and that the offense will just simply be better because Deshaun Watson's not there and that they have some veteran quarterbacks and some young quarterbacks who can hopefully open some things up for Quinshon. If that is the case, I do think Quinshon will stand a chance in this race. I don't think he'll win it, but I definitely do think he will be a candidate nonetheless. Moving over to number 4, I have Matthew Golden. Now, I had Matthew Golden as my wide receiver 3 heading into this draft class, but admittedly speaking, I did not feel terribly confident that he would be a perfect wide receiver 1 unless he was in a certain situation, and that certain situation just happened to be the Green Bay Packers, where I think Matthew Golden could very well end up being that go-to guy, hence the wide receiver 1 for Jordan Love. This is a Packers team that wants to run the football, but they also want to throw that rock around. Jordan Love loves to throw the ball deep. He loves to take risky plays. He likes to just move the ball downfield in big chunks, and I think somebody like Matthew Golden could very well end up being a guy that Jordan Love falls in love with. No pun intended, obviously. With that said, I do think Matthew Golden can do a lot of other things than just win deep. He's definitely a solid route runner with solid hands who can create separation with his speed. And I think somebody like Jordan Love is just going to find this guy as a complete safety blanket in the intermediates to even sometimes in the underneath stuff. I think if Matthew Golden just kind of works some little nuance into his game, I think he could be a great slot receiver that can also play on the inside and on the outside. I'm not going to call him like a CD Lamb-like guy, but if he can kind of just play his game pretty similar to like a CD Lamb, I think he can honestly be kind of like him. Now, the nice thing for Matthew Golden, and it's also kind of a bad thing for his Rookie of the Year case, is that there's some other receivers in this offense that can open things up for him. but they can also take away a lot of his work, because look at a Christian Watson, you're looking at a Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, and Jaden Reed. All of those guys will be competing for a lot of snaps this upcoming season. Now, granted, I wouldn't be surprised if like one of those guys were to get cut or were to get traded, just because there's just so many bodies in this room. But if that is who they enter the 2025 season with, 5 guys who can all play, it's going to take away from Matthew Golden and his productivity, which will be unfortunate. But I do think that if he can create a strong connection with Jordan Love, if he can be solid and crisp with his routes and really get his timing down with the quarterback, I think Matthew Golden will be somebody who gets a lot of work every single week. If he could just be that reliable safety blanket for Jordan Love that honestly he hasn't had these past couple years, because nobody on this offense has just been consistent and reliable. If Matthew can be consistent and can be reliable, I could see him getting a lot of production this upcoming season. I'm not saying he's going to eclipse 1,000 yards, but I would not be surprised if you told me, hey, this guy got 100 targets, maybe like 75 catches or something along those lines, and had like almost 1,000 yards. I would not be surprised one bit, because I think he can just absolutely rule. He's such a good route runner. He's crisp, he's clean, he can create separation because he's pretty nuanced. Now, I will admit, sometimes against man coverage, he can get kind of smothered, and I think he needs to show better effort. But if he can just be that reliable guy for Jordan Love, this is going to really open up this offense, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities for Matthew. And also, unlike Quinshawn, there's other things on this offense. Like with Quinshawn's case, it's quite honestly just him, Judy, and David Njoku who are going to be probably working with the ball quite a bit. In Green Bay, there's a lot of different options out there, so it's not like they could just double team Matthew Golden and feel really good about it. They have to also worry about all those other receivers, and not to mention a really good running game. But with that said, he's at my number 4. Moving on to number 3, Tetairoa McMillan. A lot of things I said about Matthew Golden can also be applied to Tet McMillan. Let's start off with my criteria. He's going to be probably their wide receiver 1 as soon as training camp starts. He's going to get a lot of opportunities because of Bryce Young, and I think the situation is perfect for him. And McMillan entered into this draft, and I thought he was potentially going to fall just a smidge, because it felt like the NFL was a little bit lower on him than a lot of the NFL media was, but it turned out the NFL media was right. He ended up going top 10 to the Carolina Panthers, and I think the situation for Tet is honestly quite nice. He's going to step in there with a solid receiving core around him with some young guys who can also get some run, like Xavier Legette. I don't think we should just forget about him and think he's going to be a nothing burger. Like, he's going to get some work. Adam Thielen, Jalen Coker, Jatavion Sanders in the tight end room, like those guys are going to get some work, and I think that could honestly open up a lot of things for a guy like Tet. Now, Tet is somebody who can win deep. He can win those 50-50 balls, but at times he can also be kind of a possession receiver who can work the underneath, who can work the intermediate, and be a reliable big target for Bryce Young to throw the ball to. When everyone's covered and Tet McMillan is downfield, I kind of think Bryce Young can just throw the ball up to him and see if he can make a play. That's kind of something they were missing last year, where yes, at times Legette could be that guy, but he was just so unreliable at times. Tet McMillan could step in there day one, work the intermediate, work the underneath, create big plays after the catch, but I also think he can win deep and give Bryce Young a reliable target to throw the ball 15-20 yards downfield, which is just something he hasn't really had this since basically Alabama. So for Bryce Young, who's getting more comfortable in this offense, it's year 2 of Dave Canales with an improved offensive line, obviously from his rookie season, a running game with Rico Dowell, Chuba Hubbard, and a bunch of other guys. Trevor Etienne is also there. This is going to be a team that's going to have different options. Hence, they're not going to be able to stack a lot of bodies on Tet McMillan defensively. So Tet should get opportunities. He's going to be the go-to guy. And if Tet can just play well in his rookie season, he's going to get a lot of opportunities to make some big plays. From what I've already heard, it does sound like both Tet and Bryce Young have been working out and have been playing very well with each other. It seems like those guys already have a bit of a connection. And with this offense in 2025, now in year 3 of Bryce Young, I do expect this offense to take a nice step forward from what we've seen these past couple years. There's really, in my opinion, no big excuse for Bryce Young. You have a good running game, you have a good offensive line, you have some fun tight ends, and now you have a true wide receiver 1 in Tet McMillan. So for Bryce Young, it's kind of up to him to make those plays. And I think when he's going to be looking for guys to make plays, I think Tet McMillan very well could be the guy that becomes the big play maker for Bryce Young, as well as not just a big playmaker, but also maybe the reliable weapon that can create easy first downs, can win after the catch, can be go-to consistent, reliable option that Bryce Young can continue to throw the ball to and feel consistent. it's kind of the reason why Adam Thielen has been the go-to guy for Bryce Young, even though Adam Thielen's like into his late 30s now, because he's reliable, he's consistent, you know what you're getting from the guy. Hopefully Ted McMillan could be that for Bryce Young, so that way Adam Thielen can, you know, kind of rest away now at this point. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2, and I have Cam Ward. He's the only quarterback on this list. I also did consider Tyler Shock for this list as well, primarily as an honorable mention, but I don't know. I'm just not a Shock fan. I also think the situation around him is not particularly great. Whereas for Cam Ward, I think the situation is fine. Let's get this out of the way. The offensive line in Tennessee is improved from last year. With J.C. Latham moving over to right tackle, you're bringing a new other left tackle. The interior offensive line looks a little bit better. This offensive line should be good enough for a young rookie quarterback. There's also some fun weapons on this team. You bring in Alec Ayomaner, who I don't know why, but he ended up falling pretty far in the draft, but I thought he was a top 10 receiver that could have went as early as day 2, and he fell pretty far. So they get him. Obviously, you have Calvin Ridley. You also brought in Gunnar Helm. You have a bunch of other guys too. You look at this Titans offense and it has some bodies, not to mention some running backs and Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So I think this team should be pretty balanced. They should be able to run the football. Cam Ward is still developing, but I think he can step in there and have some reliable targets to throw the ball to. And I think it's also important that we mention that typically if a quarterback in his rookie season has a good year, he's likely going to be one of the favorites to win it. Not saying that, you know, a running back or receiver couldn't win the award. It just kind of depends on how good they play. But typically because you're a quarterback, especially if your team is somewhat successful, you're going to get a little bit more of a rub for a potential award. So I do think that's maybe part of the reason why Cam Ward's number 2. But I also just think, look, he's going to be the starter come week 1. I think the situation around him is also pretty solid. I think this Titans team should be okay next year. So if all those kind of work together to go along with Cam Ward just having a fun rookie season, I could see him winning the award. Again, this is a team that wants to try and contend right now. They want to make the playoffs. They probably won't, but they want to start getting into that mode. They have a young rookie quarterback. You have some young pieces around this guy with also some veterans as well. Situation should be nice. Cam Ward should step in there day 1 and be able to make an impact. Now, again, I want to reiterate that I think he's a bit of a project right now. I don't think he's a finished product. I think he's a good project to have because I think he can step in there and also make plays, but I think he needs a lot more work to fully become the guy we think he can be. So I don't think this is a situation where it's like a CJ Stroud where he can step in there instantly and make plays. I don't think this is a Jaden Daniels situation either. I do think this is a spot where even though, yes, he was taken number 1, I do think he needs time. I don't think he's quite yet ready, which is fine for the Tennessee Titans. But if you want to talk about just being a contender for an award like Offensive Rookie of the Year, it would be a bit nicer if you were a bit more of a clean product and ready to go instantly. So that kind of holds me back from putting him number 1, just because I don't think he's quite yet a finished product and isn't quite yet where he needs to be in terms of being an instant contributor on an offense. Whereas my number 1 guy is a bit more of a finished product. I feel a lot more safer about him. The situation's good as well as everything else. So that's why he's my number 2. But again, I think because he's a quarterback, because he has good enough talent around him, I do think he'll be in for a fine rookie season, which might be good enough to win him an Offensive Rookie of the Year award. But let us go ahead and move on to number 1, Ashton Jeanty. I felt like a lot of us kind of already knew this one was coming. Look, Jeanty is in the perfect situation. He's with an offensive line that has some big bulldozers in front of him that should be able to create rushing lanes. He's the only running back on this roster you feel terribly confident in. This is not a team that has a great cast of receivers outside of Brock Bowers. So you're looking at a team that's going to run the football. And with Geno Smith putting together an offense that should be able to pass the football too, it's not like teams are just going to be able to stack the box against Jeanty and make things really difficult for him because, man, you got to also respect Geno Smith, who's a veteran quarterback who's been there, done that, can thread the needle and make big-time plays, even if his receiving core is not particularly special. Brock Bowers is going to get a ton of work next season, and he's going to be Geno Smith's absolute guy next year. But outside of Brock Bowers, this running game is also going to be a huge part of this team. I expect Jeanty to get 20-plus carries a game. I expect Jeanty to get close to 300 carries in his rookie season. Now, yes, there is a world where they try to limit his production because of how much work he got last year for Boise State. That's definitely a possibility, but I don't think it's going to limit what Jeanty can do. He's a special running back with elite contact balance. He can break off tackles. He can make big splashy plays. I also think he can do some work in the receiving game as well, though I don't think he'll be asked to do too much of it because they already have some other guys behind him like Mostert. But I look at the situation, it's perfect for a guy like Jeanty just to win this award. I also just think think that he was the best pure offensive player in this year's draft class. Like, Genty was so unbelievably good last year for Boise State. And now this year, he's going to be entering into a situation that is just perfect for him. He's going to be the go-to guy. He's going to be the RB1. He's going to have a good quarterback. He's going to have a coach that wants to run the football. It's an experienced team with some really young pieces that are good and some older veterans that are also really good. So I'm excited for this Raiders team. I'm also very excited for Ashton Genty. Another thing that's also important to call out, I think the offensive line in front of him is good enough. So he has a good offensive line, a great quarterback, some fun receiving weapons like Brock Bowers. Like, Genty is going to get a lot of, and I think the offense should be quite open. I think there should be a lot of holes for him to run through, some big splashy plays ready to be made. Yes, he's going to have to get used to NFL-like guys and not college guys, but every rookie has to do that. I think right now he is the heavy favorite to win this award, and I think rightfully so. The situation's perfect. He's an incredible player. Everything about this just screams this guy's ready to go all in for this award. I think the Raiders will be good next year. I think they can make the playoffs, and if they are a playoff contender, I think that just bolsters the fact that Genty could win this award. But you guys let me know in the comment section below, who do you guys think is going to win this award? And if I did not mention anyone that you guys think could potentially win it, let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.